Over the years, the writers at DC would have the characters from Earth 1 visit Earth 2 or Earth 3, or vice versa. These crossover event comics came to be known as the Crisis series, as each of these world-altering stories contained the word crisis in their title. Though there were a couple universe-altering stories outside the Crisis series, including 52, Flashpoint, The New 52, and Convergence. However, for the point of this series, we're only going to focus on the storylines that alter the DC Universe continuity. Those being Crisis on Infinite Earths, 0 Hour, Crisis in Time, Infinite Crisis, 52, Final Crisis, Flashpoint, The New 52, and finally Convergence. Coming to a head in 1985, things within the DC continuity had become a veritable mess. With multiple characters, storylines, and worlds now coexisting with one another, no character's backstory or even known abilities were completely consistent or reliable. So, in an effort to both downsize and start anew, the limited series Crisis on Infinite Earths was created. In this giant crossover event, heroes from all the different Earths and even different time periods were brought together to help stop the destruction of the multiverse. The person behind this collaboration was a cosmic entity known as the Monitor. One by one, all the many Earths were being erased from existence by a villain known as the Anti-Monitor, a seriously evil dude who wished to destroy the entire multiverse. Now, while our heroes were somewhat successful, having defeated the Anti-Monitor and avoided the complete destruction of the universe, the multiverse as we knew it ceased to exist. Almost all the characters from the various worlds were erased, along with every known version of Earth. So, how could this be considered a win? Well, in the chaos of all this destruction, a single universe was formed, with an Earth simply known as New Earth at its center. On New Earth, there would be new, but somewhat familiar versions of the characters from the Golden, Silver, and Bronze Ages, allowing for their stories to begin anew in modern times. As for the few remaining characters from the pre-Crisis universe, most returned to this new Earth with no memory of these events. Yet 4 individuals, Superman and Lois Lane from Earth 2, Superboy Prime from Earth Prime, and Alexander Luthor, son of Earth 3's Lex Luthor, retreated to a Paradise Pocket dimension to spend the rest of their days. So what was the result of this story? First off, it allowed the writers at DC to put their popular characters into a more modern setting, without having to worry about continuity errors. Second, they could now make a singular consistent lore starting from the beginning, cutting back on confusion caused by multiple versions of the same character. This also allowed them to retool some of these characters' origins, to better serve the desire for more serious storylines, or to straight up erase the annoying and unpopular characters from DC's roster. Need we bring up Batmite? Finally, it also allowed them to put the characters from the Golden Age alongside those of the Silver and Bronze Ages in the same timeline and universe, to create one harmonious new world. And for the most part it worked. Granted, there were some standalone stories that would completely disregard the continuity of this new Earth, but these stories were marked as Elseworld stories, to let the readers know that they were not part of the current comics. But, of course, because this is DC, things couldn't stay simple. In 1994, DC published a new Crisis story, 0 Hour, Crisis in Time. Now, while Crisis on Infinite Earths shook up the condition of the physical universe, 0 Hour messed with the timeline of the New Earth continuity. In the story, the heroes of New Earth are faced with a new threat in the form of the villain Extant, who appears to have caused a wave of entropy to wash over the time stream, not only causing people from the past and future to appear out of their own time, but for the time stream itself to be eaten away, starting from both the very end and the very beginning of time, working towards the 20th century. While the members of the newly reintroduced Justice Society fell under Extant's power, a small group of heroes, along with the help of the Linear Men, Wave Rider, and Rip Hunter, are able to stop the procession of the entropy, at least for a moment. When pockets of the remaining timeline begin to disappear, we learn that the true mastermind behind this attack on the time stream is the former teammate, Hal Jordan, better known as Green Lantern. However, this is not the man they knew. Driven to the edge by the destruction of his hometown, Coast City, during the Reign of Superman storyline, this Hal Jordan has fallen prey to his doubts, which allowed Parallax, the cosmic being of fear, to possess him and influence his actions. With the new powers given to him by Parallax, he not only took on the name of the being, but planned to remake this destroyed timeline, fixing all of the mistakes along the way, making it so heroes who had fallen never died, that battles lost were won, and that Coast City had never been destroyed. Now, while this all might sound like a heroic thing to do, Hal had destroyed and even killed other heroes in his quest to remake history anew. So, of course, the rest of the remaining DC superhero crew moved to stop him. And while they were able to stop Parallax, the timeline still needed to be rebuilt. So, with the combined efforts of Wave Rider and the young hero Damage, and a few others, this group was able to remake the timeline of this world. Though not everything was exactly the way it had been. But luckily, any changes that happened were either good, very subtle, and only used to fix the remaining plot holes left by Crisis on Infinite Earths. With all the inconsistencies seeming to be rectified, you would think that DC would just continue to write stories in this universe. But the truth was, despite the fact that the former multiverse was confusing as all get out, its fun and loose way of playing with these characters offered a lot more opportunities for writers to take chances. Next up, we delve into the plot lines and important info of the stories Infinite Crisis, 52, Final Crisis, and Flashpoint, as they reintroduce and edit the multiverse and bring us into the new 52 continuity.